Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at our congruence assignment. I notice up here, we are going to try to prove that two triangles are congruent by using side, 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 angle, side, angle, or angle, angle, side. So remember, when we are looking to see if two triangles are congruent, we must follow this order. If they are not touching and not in this order, then we cannot use the theorem to prove that the two triangles are congruent. So as I go through these, I am going to use my colored pens just to help me keep all of that in line. So I notice that in my first set of two triangles here, I do have congruent angles. And so I do have a set of congruent angles. So let's see where we can go from there. I also notice that my two triangles share a line. And when they share a line, that means I can use reflexive property to say that they are congruent. So now I have a side. So I have an angle touching a side that's congruent. And now I need another, let's see, I need another angle. I do not know that this angle is congruent to that angle. So since I have nothing, I cannot prove that these angles are congruent. This is not congruent. At this point, there's not enough information to tell me that they are congruent. And since I am missing a third piece, even though these sides are congruent, they're not touching. They're not touching anything. Notice that this is not touching an angle that's congruent, and it's not touching an angle that's congruent here. So that side doesn't really matter because it's not touching anything. Okay, let's take a look at our next one. In my next one, notice that I have angles that are congruent here. So I do have an angle. Notice that we also have reflexive property in this one. Since my two triangles share a side, that side is congruent to itself. So I do have a side. So in order for this to be congruent, I need to now have another angle. So look at that. I do have another angle. Those two are congruent. So I have another angle. Now remember, order matters and they have to be touching. This angle, the green, touches the orange side, which then the orange side touches the yellow angle. And notice that that happens on both sides. So these are congruent by angle, side, angle. Let's take a look at our third one. Notice in my third one, I do have two sides that are congruent. So I do have a side. Then I have another side. Notice the hash marks. So I have another side. And then once again, I have reflexive property happening. My two triangles share a side, so that side is congruent to itself. So this is side, side, side. I can prove that these two triangles are congruent to each other. Okay, one more. Notice in this one, I have angles that are on the opposite sides. So I do have angle. Notice that those two angles are touching congruent sides. So these two sides are congruent and they are touching the angle. So now I need another angle. Now, remember we have talked about how vertical angles, notice I have vertical angles here. Notice that this angle and this angle, they are vertical to each other. And we have proven with our geometry theorem or our geometry transformations, if I actually rotate, I can map one angle to the other, and therefore they are congruent. So what that means is my vertical angles are congruent. They are touching my side. And so I can prove that these two triangles are congruent by angle, side, angle. Okay, go ahead and work on the worksheet yourself.